By the age of 24, Bob Dylan was already a hugely successful recording artist, but he was also a man under tremendous pressure. When he arrived at the Chelsea Hotel in the fall of 1965, he was in need of inspiration for his next studio album. He would find it, and more. Bob Dylan arrived at the Chelsea seeking the artistic inspiration for a new album. He had sold his home in Woodstock, believing that he would be unable to write another album there. Dylan checked into room number 211, just down the hall from the woman who would become the love of his life, Sarah Lowens. Sarah was wise beyond her years. She was earthy and was knowledgeable about folklore and magic. She had a daughter, Maria, from a previous marriage to photographer Hans Lowens. Although Dylan had made himself a lot of money, the outside pressure caused him to live on what he referred to as medicine. This had left him very thin and quick to anger. It also left him unable to sit still. But the expectation remained for the voice of a generation to produce another successful album. And the Chelsea Hotel would deliver on its promise by providing Dylan directly and indirectly with the inspiration to create, as it had done for countless artists over the centuries. In fact, most of the songs on Dylan's 7th studio album, Blonde on Blonde, were written at the Chelsea Hotel, and the album would be Dylan's first to go double platinum. Here is some of what Wikipedia had to say. Quote, Blonde on Blonde peaked at number 9 on Billboard's Top 200. The album had 2 top 20 singles, Rainy Day Woman number 12 and 35, and I Want You. Just Like a Woman and Visions of Johanna have been named among Dylan's greatest work. In 1999, Blonde on Blonde was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Critics often rank Blonde on Blonde as one of the greatest albums of all time. It's also notable for being one of the first double albums in rock music. Visions of Johanna was the 3rd song on side 1 of the Blonde on Blonde album. It was written at the Chelsea and inspired by a large power outage in New York that turned into a makeshift nighttime carnival that Dylan observed from his window in room 211. Johanna is considered by many critics to be a masterpiece, and even Dylan himself seemed to acknowledge that he was at the very pinnacle of his creativity when, after the recording of Visions of Johanna, he said he would continue making records, but, quote, they're not going to be any better from now on. But as Bob Dylan dealt with the mounting pressure to produce another successful studio album, and with the physical and psychological effects of his prolonged medicated lifestyle, Dylan's behavior would change drastically, and it would directly affect the events that were about to transpire. Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands took up the entirety of the 4th side of Blonde on Blonde. After the song's recording was completed, Dylan proclaimed it the best song he had ever written. It was described as a virtual wedding song for Sarah Lowens, who had begun to see Bob Dylan the year before. And they had both moved to separate rooms in the Chelsea so they could be closer together. But things were about to become a little more complicated. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads from Retro Room. As Bob Dylan settled into life at the Chelsea, he and his best friend began frequenting many of the night haunts in Greenwich Village. Coming up next on Dylan and the Chelsea, Edie Sedgwick. Dylan and his best friend, Bob North, wasted no time establishing themselves in the nightlife scene in Greenwich Village. They entertained themselves by being provocateurs. They enjoyed stirring the pot, and it wasn't long before Dylan began to cross paths with Andy Warhol and his superstars. And things did not go smoothly. Dylan seemed to take a special delight in stirring the pot and antagonizing the superstars. But it was at the urging of Dylan's best friend, Bobby Newirth, that they contact the Warhol superstar and it girl, Edie Sedgwick. Sedgwick agreed to meet them both at a mutual Greenwich Village hangout, and both parties arrived separately in limousines. Both Dylan and Newirth were impressed. The two found that Edie Sedgwick was very interesting and also able to hold her own in conversations with both of them. Sedgwick, in fact, made such an impression on Newirth that he was enthusiastic when he later suggested to Dylan that they should meet up with Sedgwick again soon. Dylan agreed, and soon the three could regularly be spotted together in different hangouts in Greenwich Village. Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat is widely believed to be written about Edie Sedgwick, a song with a slightly jealous tone about a former lover of Dylan's who is wearing a leopard skin pillbox hat. This is also the third song on the second side of the Blonde on Blonde album. As Dylan and Newirth began spending more time with Edie Sedgwick, rumors began to swirl about a possible affair between Dylan and the Warhol superstar. And Sedgwick reportedly told her brother and director Paul Morrissey that she was in love with Dylan and believed that he returned her feelings. Although Dylan denied having an affair with her, if they were having an affair, things were about to get a little more complicated. A sort of tug-of-war had broken out between the Dylan and Warhol camps over Sedgwick, who had ambitions of a mainstream film career. And as the strain grew between Warhol's factory and Edie Sedgwick, Sedgwick packed up and moved to the Chelsea Hotel to be closer to Bob Dylan. But that also brought Sedgwick closer to Sarah Lowens, the woman that Bob Dylan was in love with and who also lived just down the hall at the Chelsea Hotel. And shortly after Sedgwick's arrival, Sarah Lowens dropped a bombshell on Bob Dylan. She was pregnant. Bob Dylan secretly married Sarah Lowens in November of 1965, and within several months, Lowens and her unborn baby would leave the Chelsea with Bob Dylan and join him on tour. But the significance of the time Dylan spent at the Chelsea would not be lost on Dylan's fans. Some 50 years later, as the Chelsea was undergoing a complete renovation, Bob Dylan's fans started a petition to leave room number 211, Dylan's former room, spared from the renovation. But in 2013, the Chelsea Hotel blog published photographic evidence that Dylan's room, which had remained virtually untouched since he resided there last in 1965, had not been spared, but in fact had been completely demolished. The only thing that did survive the renovation was the original door to Dylan's room number 211, which had been rescued by a former resident, along with a few other doors from notable rooms. In 2014, the door to Bob Dylan's room at the Chelsea was sold at auction for $100,000. The last remaining piece of Bob Dylan's legendary room at the Chelsea Hotel. Well, that's pretty much it for this video. What do you guys think? Should Bob Dylan's room have been left untouched during the Chelsea renovation? And do you believe that Bob Dylan did actually have an affair with Edie Sedgwick? Let me know in the comment section below. Want to thank you guys for watching this video. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Thanks guys, I'll see you next time.